to The Truth About the Plant. I'm your host, Christina Dees, and this is my co-host, Dr. Amanda Ryman. Dr. Ryman, why are we here?
Well, we are here because cannabis or marijuana has been illegal for decades. And even though we're starting to see those laws change, there's still a huge lack of information out there about how to use cannabis safely. What are some of the risks? What are some of the benefits? And it can be really difficult to sift through all of the information online. Some of it telling you that cannabis is the worst thing in the world. Some of it telling you it's the best thing that ever existed. And we're here to provide the truth. We're here to give you the information that you need in order to have a healthy, balanced relationship with the cannabis plant. Super short, really accessible content that you can use at your next dinner party.
Yeah, think of us just like that candid advice you get from your cool aunties. So we have a question today, and today's topic is, can you OD or can you overdose on marijuana? That's what everybody wants to know.
Well, that is a great question. That is a great question. I get this question all the time. And, let's face it, nobody wants to have a negative experience, especially not when they're using an intoxicating substance. And because of alcohol and other substances out there, a lot of folks have concern about whether that same risk holds true with marijuana. So first, I want to get out of the way that you cannot fatally overdose on marijuana. That is not possible. And the reason it's not possible is because we have all of these receptors in our bodies that are designed to fit the cannabinoids that come from the plant and that our body also produces. So these are kind of like little keyholes, if you will, and the cannabinoids are little keys, and they fit directly into these keyholes, and they produce a therapeutic effect in the body. Now, we have a lot of these receptors in our brains, and so that's why we get intoxicating effects, mood elevating effects from cannabis. However, we do not have any receptors in the part of our brain that regulates breathing. And this is really important because when we look at substances like alcohol, like opiates, if you take too much of these substances, it actually triggers a response in the brain that tells you to stop breathing. And that is where we see fatality, right? That's where we see fatal overdoses of things like alcohol and opiates. They depress the nervous system and they depress the respiratory system. No matter how much cannabis you consume, even if you're totally zombied out on the couch, it's never going to impact the part of the brain that regulates breathing, meaning that no matter how much you take, your brain is never going to send that signal to stop with the respiration. And that is why you cannot fatally overdose on marijuana.
Okay, so what I heard you say, you cannot fatally overdose on marijuana, but can you overdose on THC?
Yes. Uh, Short answer, yes. Now, again, not fatally. So no matter how much, even if you were to eat a 1,000 milligram brownie, you'd probably be feeling some sort of way, but you would not have a fatal overdose. However, we really define overdose as taking too much of something, right? If you take too much alcohol and you throw up, even if you don't die, you overdosed on alcohol, right? You had too much in your system and your system was getting rid of it. If you eat a whole bag of cookies and then you get a stomach ache, you've overdosed on sugar. You put too much sugar in your body and your body is rejecting it and giving you a negative reaction. So when we talk about cannabis, it really, as far as we know, is not possible to overdose on CBD because CBD is non-psychoactive, meaning that you can take a whole lot of CBD. Maybe if you really pushed the limits, you might make yourself sick. I mean, really push the limits, but we don't see the same kind of risk of overdose with CBD as we do with THC. However, if you take too much THC, you can have a bad time. This has happened to a lot of people, especially through methods of ingestion like edibles, where you might be eating more than you think. It might take longer to feel the effect. And so, maybe you don't feel the effect after 45 minutes, so you eat more. And then after 45 minutes, you eat more, and then it hits you all at one time. This is a THC overdose. And there are some symptoms of a THC overdose. One of the biggest symptoms is feeling overwhelmed. So kind of that panicky, anxious feeling where you start to feel a bit disassociated from your surroundings. You don't necessarily feel safe. This is probably the most frequently reported outcome of a THC overdose. Other people report getting nauseous, getting very, very sleepy and lethargic. And then, of course, like I said, kind of that anxiety. Those are the most common symptoms of a THC overdose. So it absolutely exists. It is not dangerous. So as long as you don't get into a car or put something on the stove and forget about it, a THC overdose in and of itself is not dangerous, but it can be very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think we all know somebody that has taken too much at some point or another time in their life. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it does happen. And the good news is, in another one of our episodes, we're going to talk about microdosing THC and how beneficial that can be versus taking too much of it. But so, what should people do? So, if this happens, how do they prevent it and what should they do?
Well, prevention's always the best method, right? If we can prevent it from happening in the first place, that is what we prefer. So if you want to prevent a THC overdose from happening, we've talked about mindful consumption before. So really paying attention to how much you're ingesting and knowing your limits. It also depends on the method of ingestion that you choose. So if you're consuming marijuana through inhalation, that's smoking or vaporizing, you're going to feel the effects pretty quickly. So you can have a little bit, see how you feel, and then wait or not take anymore if you feel like you're kind of reaching that upper limit. Edibles can be a little bit trickier because, as I said, it can take a while to feel the effect. So it can be a bit harder to titrate your dose. Also, when you ingest Delta 9 THC, which is the cannabinoid that's responsible for that intoxicating effect, when you eat it like a food, it actually passes through the liver, and that's why it takes so long to feel the effect. And when it passes through the liver, it actually becomes a stronger version of itself. It becomes Delta 11 THC. So if you're eating an edible, not only are you a little bit wary about the time it's going to take, it actually is going to come on stronger than if you were to just smoke. Now, the good news is that there's great technology out on the market now, especially with cannabis beverages, where they've developed a way for rapid absorption into the bloodstream, meaning it doesn't have to pass through the liver. So it does not become Delta 11, and you're going to feel the effects more in like 10 to 15 minutes versus an hour or two. Another great method of ingestion for controlling THC overdose is a tincture. So when you take something under your tongue or sublingually, it also does not go through the liver, and you're going to feel those effects within 10 to 15 minutes. So a good way to prevent a THC overdose is to use a method of consumption where you can feel the effects right away, to take just a little bit and then wait. Like wait a good 30 minutes or an hour, especially if you're newer to marijuana, before you take any more, because sometimes you can have a delayed onset. Sometimes it might feel fine at the beginning. So you take a little more and then all of a sudden you've kind of gone over that edge. So that mindful consumption piece and really understanding the different methods of ingestion is a great way to prevent THC overdose. Now, it happens to the best of us. You were saying we all know someone. I know someone, me, myself, I have definitely taken too much THC. Either I didn't know the dose of what I was taking, or, I was on an empty stomach. I will also say that cannabis is very vulnerable to setting. So you might take 10 milligrams of THC on your couch with your best friend watching Netflix and have like the best time of your life. And then the next weekend you go to a loud festival where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of people, and maybe you already feel a little anxious about being there. Take the same dose and have a completely different reaction. So it's also really important not only to know why you're consuming and what you're consuming, but how the environment that you're in may contribute to the level of intoxication that you feel. So, okay, let's say it happens to you, right? You're at a party, you're at home, you're at a festival, you're at a sporting event, and all of a sudden you've taken some THC and you start to feel that kind of disassociated, disconnected feeling. You start to feel a little overwhelmed, maybe a little lightheaded, maybe a little anxious. What do you do? Well, the first thing is to remember you are not in danger, right? So the more anxious you start to feel about what might happen, the more it's going to exacerbate that feeling of a THC overdose. So just tell yourself, this isn't dangerous. I'm not going to die. This is totally going to pass. It's just going to take a little time. And then I encourage you to drink some water, eat some food, and get yourself someplace that is quiet, where you feel safe. So that could be, if you're at a loud party, find kind of a quiet corner of the room, or go out on the balcony or someplace that's less crowded with less going on, get some fresh air, and bring someone with you. So tell your friend, hey, I think I had too much THC. I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable. Would you mind going on a little walk with me around the neighborhood or going to sit in a quiet place for a little bit? And then the last recommendation I have is to try to do something familiar. So one of the things you're trying to do is ground yourself, right? To get back into your reality. And so watching a favorite thing on TV or streaming on your computer, listening to your favorite song, anything that's kind of connect you with that safe, good feeling is the way to go. So me personally, I would put on The Office. I would get comfortable in my couch and I would just kind of let that nostalgia and comfortable feeling wash over me, have plenty of water, have some food. And again, know that this will pass, that it is not dangerous. And if you're with someone who is experiencing a THC overdose, remind them of that as well, right? So let them know they're going to be okay, get them what they need, make sure they don't drive or do anything else that's going to put themselves at risk, but make sure they know that this will pass and that, you know what, next time you're going to really know how to make sure it doesn't happen, right? You're going to remember what led it, what brought it on, what you were doing, and that's a lesson learned.
Yeah. So just to recap what Amanda just said, step one, stay calm. Step two, drink water, eat some food, find a quiet space. And three, do something familiar. So whether that's a familiar place that you feel comfortable in, a favorite song, something that will bring you some calmness. Because step one is stay calm.
Absolutely.
I think that's the goal. All right.
Step
Well,
one is stay calm.
stay calm. Nothing gets solved when you're in a state of anxiety. Well, hopefully our listeners learned something today that they can apply to their own life. And, you know, if you are watching and you have a question of your own, you can email us at info@mypersonalplants.com. That's info@mypersonalplants with an S.com. You can go to mypersonalplants.com. All of these videos are there, as well as our YouTube channel. And, you know, do us a favor, like, subscribe to the channel. And if you really like what you saw, share it with your friends, because the more people that have this information, the better. So thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Amanda, and we'll see everybody next time.
Bye.